So with the drywall finished and painted, and the cement board installed, I can finally get started on the cabinet construction. So one of the first things that I need to do is to get all the 8x4 feet plywood sheets cut up using the track saw. So I'm moving the tables into the middle and getting them connected. I built these to be modular sometime back in 2011 so that I can move them around for different jobs with the ability to join them together if I needed a bigger workspace. So here I am locking the arms into place. These things do lock for real, with a strike plate mortise into the arm's end and a latch bolt in the receiving socket, so you actually do have to turn the handle to release them. Once the arms are locked together, then the top flips into place and the bottom shelf extends over. To hide the table saw, first I remove the fence and then lower the platform using the hand crank and slide in the cover. For the miter saw, I get the footprint down first and then press the switch. It's a Milwaukee M12 charger that I reverse wired, so it powers the 12-volt car seat motor that I Frankensteined onto the jack. So I'm going to pick the easiest carcass out of the bunch to start, which is this standalone unit at the end. In terms of styles, there are the frameless full overlay drawers. These are what's in my current kitchen, and they offer the most amount of storage. Then there's the framed inset drawers, which in my opinion look the best. And then this is the partial overlay, which is what this kitchen was originally before they upgraded it. I'm not picking any of these. Instead, I'm going to combine the frameless carcass with inset drawers. I'm also going to convert all the doors to a drawer stack, except for the sink unit. For materials, the carcass is going to be plywood, the glue on edges will be poplar, and the drawer faces and the cabinet doors will be walnut. The current cabinet is all melamine veneer particle board, and eventually moisture finds a way in somehow, and as it swells, it cracks the veneer. This all started out as a 3/4 inch, and as you can see, it's now swollen to over 1 3/16. I'm at Windsor Plywood, down in Burnaby, looking at some marine grade mahogany. That's a bit steep. You can also get Douglas fir marine grade for almost half the price. There is also Russian birch. These are super solid. These are not the same Russian birch that you see at Home Depot or Lowe's. So if you're not familiar with marine grade plywood, there's 2 attributes that it needs to meet. One is that it cannot have any voids. This is the Russian birch special down here at Home Depot. So the problem with these is you don't know how big the voids are until you cut into them. So it could be this big or it could be this big. This one's like, 4 inches across. The second is the use of WBP glue, which stands for weather and boil proof. Basically, it means it can't delaminate when it gets wet, and it needs to last a minimum 72 hours of boiling water before it starts delaminating. I've got all the pieces cut for carcass A, sides, bottom, and the stretchers, top front, top rear, and bottom front. The sides are 23 inches long, plus another inch for the poplar. So a lot of woodworkers dislike the green heartwood in poplar, and some go to all sorts of trouble to get rid of it. I love the green, and I wish there was a way to keep it, but there isn't. This is going to start to yellow, and eventually it's going to be a dark beige or tan, which is still going to look good, but I think the green would have looked really nice with the dark walnut, but oh well. Anyways, I'm going to cut this to length and then rip them into 1-inch pieces. Actually 1 1/16. I'll tell you why after. So the 1/16 add-on was to account for the saw marks. I'm gonna plane these out. I'm not going to be clamping these. I'm just going to secure it in place with tape while it cures. Same deal for the bigger pieces. And there are the two sides, the bottom, and the two stretchers. After it dries, I move on to planing off the extra thickness on either sides. And for the overhang, I flush them on the shooting board. I need to round these edges. Usually after being planed, especially right after sharpening, these edges can be pretty sharp, but I can't do it now because these are going to end up butting up to each other, like so. So if I sand down all the edges, the intersection will have a gap. So I'm going to put them together first and then round them later. So there's a bunch of different ways to build a carcass. Traditionally, you notch the toe kick from the side, with the bottom getting dadoed into it. Or you can just cut the bottom to fit in between and fasten them in. You can also choose not to integrate and instead just build a box and then add the legs and the kickboard, which is what I'm going to do. And for this case, it's better to go with this setup, where the weight of the countertop gets transferred to the sides, and then that gets transferred to the bottom, and then to the legs. So basically, from top to bottom, something is always directly under the previous element. Whereas here, the only thing preventing the weight of the countertop doing this to the cabinet are the fasteners. And yes, structural screws are awesome, but with this setup, it's actually impossible to fail. For the backs, it's common practice to use a 1/8 inch hardboard. I'm going to go with the 1/2 inch marine. It's going to give a boost to the structural integrity and also resistance to racking. For the stretchers, I'm fastening them from the side because this is all going to get covered up later. This is the bottom piece, and here I'm just marking the screw location. The sides are going to sit on top of this, and I'm going to drive them in from the bottom. For ease of assembly, I have it laid on its side, and I'm using a clamp to keep them in place so I can pre-drill and also countersink. And this is the front stretcher, attached in the same manner. So I was testing out the finishes on one of the stretcher. This one is unfinished, but this one has water-based poly on it in satin, and you can see just the faintest sheen difference. And it's ever so slightly darker, but if I didn't tell you what I did, you'd probably think they're the same. At an angle, it looks a bit darker, naturally, but the same. Now the other side is oil-based poly, and you can clearly see an amber tone to it. But when I tilt it, it's significantly darker and redder. I like the water-based, so this is going to be the back stretcher. I'm going to cut off the edging, and it's going to face up, so it won't ever get seen. These are spacers that were cut to the exact height as the opening. This way I can just butt up the bottom piece, secure it, and get it fastened. and using the same approach in the back as well, in order to get the drawer slides to sit at the correct height before drilling out the holes. And that's it for the carcass. Only thing I need now is the measurement between the slides so that I can start the drawer box construction. Next episode, I'm going to get started on all the dovetail joints. And that's about that.